My boyfriend Lucas Grant is getting married. I was the last to know. And of course the bride isn't me. He had his arm around a college girl he just hooked up with and bragged to his buddies. Julia Reed, an older woman. It's been 7 years. Who wouldn't be sick of her by now? And she's had an abortion. A life died in her belly. Filthy. The private room burst into laughter. Vivian White looked like a fragile little flower nestled in his arms. Outside the room, I leaned against the wall with a mocking smile. 7 years. Who wouldn't be tired of it? I should treat myself to something decent too. Something urgent came up at work today. I'd already packed up to leave, but lately my head's been foggy like I'm coming down with a cold, and my eyes feel a little blurry. I checked the mirror. The Julia Reed who once looked smooth as jade now stared back, worn and spent. My polished surface held together by makeup alone. The client suddenly added demands. The younger girls at the company had already grabbed their bags and dashed off laughing. I had no choice but to put the proposal together myself. When I finally finished it was 9:30. I sent the plan to the person in charge on the other side. About 5 minutes later my WeChat chimed. Miss Reed, do you have time to have dinner together? I'm guessing you haven't eaten either. It was from Ethan Cole, the young heir of the Cole Group. Word was he only returned from studying abroad last year, and his family tossed him a small company to cut his teeth on. But he and my boyfriend Lucas Grant have never gotten along. They disliked each other as kids, and as adults they still try to trip each other up at work. To avoid unnecessary trouble, I turned him down, switched off the lights and headed out. Moments later, another message arrived, still from Ethan. A photo. My boyfriend Lucas Grant had his arm around our company's new college hire, Vivian White. The two of them looked intimate, their eyes practically clinging to each other. Right after that came an address. I knew what Ethan wanted me to see. I slumped in my car and rubbed my throbbing temples. I've been so tired lately, so tired my heart feels numb. Seeing Lucas fool around with another woman, I was surprisingly calm, unhurried. Deep down a faint voice even murmured, "Fine, let it be. When you love too deeply it's like a mire. The more you struggle the deeper you sink." I closed my eyes and took a long breath. After 2 or 3 minutes I started the engine, pulled out of the underground garage, and drove straight to the address. By the time I arrived, the banquet was near its end. Lucas, his arm around his intern assistant Vivian White, was glassy-eyed with drink. Around them people hooped and jeered, shouting for them to link arms and drink. I stood by the doorway, half hidden behind a screen like a stranger, and watched them cross their arms, stare into each other's eyes and drain their red wine. "Mr. Grant, are you really going to marry Vivian?" someone asked. Lucas grinned, riding high. "Yeah, Vivian's carrying my baby. I won't shortchange her." A flicker of smugness crossed Vivian's face as she leaned into him. Everyone who knew us understood. Lucas Grant and I were a couple. We started dating in college. Before we even graduated, we began investing in our own company. We didn't have any money and couldn't afford to hire anyone. As the so-called vice president, I was both the boss and the staff. To be specific, the entire company was just Lucas and me. He handled things outside, constant schmoozing and drinking, while almost everything inside the company was done by me alone. Later, the company slowly took off and we finally had a little money in hand. 3 springs ago, when everything was warming and blooming, I told Lucas in a rush of joy that I was pregnant, that there was a tiny life tied to me by blood. I suggested we go get the marriage license first. I wanted to keep the baby. The moment he heard it, his face changed. That was the first time we ever fought. He snapped and called me a scheming Julia Reed. "Did you get pregnant on purpose? Are you trying to use this clumsy trick to tie me down? Tie down the company. I gave you shares and money. When have I ever shorted you a penny? And now you insist on saddling me with a child I'm not ready for just to torture me." I stared at him, stunned, like I was looking at a stranger. Back in college, he chased me like a man possessed, layering on every kind of romance. Good morning and good night messages, flowers, candles, milk tea, perfume, lipstick, handbags. He said that from the moment he saw me, he knew I was the one fate had picked for him. "Julia, do you know what love at first sight feels like?" he told me. "From the instant I saw you, it was like I'd been waiting 10,000 years. In this vast sea of people we finally met again. Thank Buddha." When he said it, He pressed his palms together like a devout Buddhist. I threw myself into the sweetness and beauty of love. We started a company together, ran sales, built proposals, laughed together, cried together, made a mess together. Now there was a baby, our love's little crystal, and he wanted me to get rid of it. We fought hard. I even thought about having the baby on my own, but the next day he cooked porridge and coaxed me. Julia, let's end the pregnancy. The company is just starting to show promise. Right now we really don't have time to care for a newborn who needs round-the-clock feeding. Julia, could you really bear to let a child come into this world unprepared and suffer for it? I clenched my teeth. I didn't want an abortion. I argued with him, reason with feeling, reason with logic, holding my ground. A week later, I was suddenly gripped by unbearable abdominal pain. On the way to the hospital, Lucas told me, "Julia, I'm sorry. I still can't take on the responsibility of being a father. I can't just let a tiny life rush into my world when I'm not ready." I felt like lightning split my skull. My vision went black in waves. I wanted to confront him, to curse him, to hit him, but the pain in my belly was too much. And just like that, my baby was gone. I lay in the hospital lifeless for a week. No matter how gently, how sweet-talking Lucas was as he tried to soothe me, the company had piled up with work and I couldn't ignore it. So I threw myself back into it. The tedious, hectic grind dulled the pain of losing the pregnancy bit by bit. And now Vivian White is pregnant, and he's going to marry her. Life is nothing if not cruelly ironic. The vows he swore still seemed to ring in my ears. He was inside. I was outside. A single folding screen stood between us, and it blocked more than just my body. I heard my name. Someone asked Lucas, "Mr. Grant, if you're marrying Vivian White, then what about Julia Reed?" His laughter drifted out. "She can do whatever she should do. To be honest, ever since she had the abortion I felt she's dirty. Every time I think about a life dying in her womb, it messes with my head. I can't let my future child live in a filthy uterus like that." It seemed like everyone was laughing, the sound cutting into me. "Tell me, isn't she stupid? She was even getting ready to get married." I never agreed. "She's been busy planning the wedding. I can't just let her run around for nothing. When the time comes, I'll do as I please and marry my little princess, Vivian." I slowly backed away on my toes like a Persian cat sneaking a bite, slipped around to a corner far from the private room, and wiped the extra tears from my face. I opened my phone and messaged Ethan Cole. "Mr. Cole, want to get dinner together? Have you eaten?" First he sent me his location. Then he wrote, "The chives are ready waiting for you." I went into the restroom to fix my makeup. While I was there, a message from Lucas popped up. "Julia, something came up tonight. The guys are dragging me to karaoke, so I won't be coming back. Go to bed early." I was in the middle of blending my eyeshadow, free a hand, and replied with a single word, "Okay." If this were before, I would have pressed him for details, asked who he was drinking and singing with, told him to come home early when he was done. I would have worried he might drink too much. Drinking hurts your health. It was practically my catchphrase. Now everything feels strange. I don't even want to waste an extra word on him. Love is a weird thing. When you're in it, your gut is tied in knots. You can't forget for a second. If he was out drinking and having fun, I couldn't sleep through the night. I used to try to talk him out of it, but he always said, "Deals are made at the banquet table." How could I not drink? I was such a fool. I thought whatever happened at those tables, even if there were women, was just going through the motions. He once told me, "Julia, don't you know my heart?" I truly didn't know what was in his heart until now. Ethan Cole was at an upscale club next door. When I walked over, a server opened the door for me, and Ethan pulled out a chair himself. He gave me a huge bouquet of purple roses. I only smiled and set the flowers aside. The dishes with chives were already on the table. In the clean, clear glasses, the red wine flickered like fire under the warm light. "Mr. Cole, I've thought it through," I said, leaning back in my chair with a small smile. "I'm willing to sell you my shares of Harborell Partners." Ethan's face lit up. "Miss Reed, I knew you'd sell them to me. It's just a small company. With the shares in your hand, all you get is a little dividend each month. Better to sell them to me in one go. Take the cash and become the chief financial officer at my coal group. Wouldn't that be great? If you want shares of Origin Capital, we can talk about that too." I smiled, raised my glass to him and said, Mr. Cole, I don't want shares of origin, but I do want something else. As I spoke, I plucked a single rose from the huge bouquet and handed it to him. He stared at the rose in my hand, stunned for a moment. In his deep eyes, I caught a flicker of a tremor and a hint of panic. I'm planning a wedding, I said. Nothing too grand. I've already ordered the dress. I'm just missing a groom. Ethan Cole drew a long breath, took the rose from me and said, Happiness came too suddenly. I thought getting you to join Origin Capital would be my greatest stroke of luck. I didn't expect an even greater blessing. I smiled lightly. I've been preparing for a while. I never played house as a kid, so let's play it now. I waited in my mind. Ethan and I are different. I can pull off a casual wedding, but he's the heir of the Cole Group. When he marries in the future, it will surely be to some well-bred society lady. I can't tarnish his reputation. We don't have to invite guests, I said. Ethan waved a hand. How could that do? We won't make it a huge affair. Your timing's tight, but we can invite our mutual friends in the circle. I touched my glass to his. I've only prepared a wedding. I'm just short of a groom. I don't care about the rest. Back when Ethan didn't know I was with Lucas the first time we met, he made his admiration clear. And later he formally confessed to me. I smiled and told him I was 27, that I had a boyfriend from college, and we were already preparing our wedding. When I said it, joy shone all over my face. I couldn't hide how happy I was. His eyes filled with heavy disappointment, as if something important slipped from his grasp in an instant. He sighed and said it just wasn't meant to be. For over a month he didn't reach out. If our companies happened to coordinate on work, he handled it by the book. Until today, he invited me to dinner and gave me the information about Lucas Grant and Vivian White. My heart was a tangle of flavors. I couldn't tell what I was feeling. The red wine slid down my throat, sweet with a breath of rose and a faint astringency. Tasted like first love. In the days that followed, with Ethan's help, I rented an apartment. Like an ant moving house, I carried my personal things out of Lucas's place bit by bit. In a blink, the wedding was drawing near. After work that day, Vivian White stopped me in the parking lot. Manager Reed, she called to me anxiously. I need to talk to you. I kept my tone even. All right, what is it? She stroked her belly, bit her lip, looking like she was acting in a TV drama. I'm pregnant, she said. I gave her a cool smile. Congratulations, pregnant right after graduating college? Fast. She must have heard the sarcasm in my voice. She thrust out her proud chest and raised her voice. Manager Reed, it's Mr. Grant's child. Without giving me a chance to speak, she rattled on. Mr. Grant says we'll hold the wedding next Saturday. He wants you to hand over the dress to me first. These days, mistresses really are brazen and overbearing. I lifted my hand and slapped her hard across the face, then started the car and drove off, ignoring Vivian White's hysterical screams and curses. I knew the wedding was getting closer. Invites were already printed and had even been sent out. Lucas Grant was getting anxious. He wanted to come clean, but he needed an opening. He's always been proud and cares about saving face, so he would never bow his head to me and admit he was wrong. For the past month, he'd been out every night, coming home reeking of women's perfume, sometimes with suspicious red marks on his neck and lipstick smudged on his collar. Before, I would have lost my patience and questioned him on the spot. Lately, I've turned a deaf ear and a blind eye. With no other choice, he sicked Vivian on me. He wanted to confess, banking on the fact that I liked him, loved him, by having the mistress herself deliver the news. Based on how well he knows me, once the other woman swaggered up to my face, I'd inevitably fight with him. He's always calculating. Even if he meant to break up, he had to force me, push me to a dead end, make me kneel at his feet, and beg him to split so he could dump me cleanly, scoop up the new girl, and take over my wedding and everything that was mine. But I wasn't going to give him that chance. When I got back, Lucas was actually home. He sat on the sofa, composed and lofty, looking me over like a judge on a bench. Julia, Vivian just called me, he said, watching me change shoes in the entryway as he began his performance. I knew he was looking for trouble, trying to pick a fight, trying to force me to say the words, "Let's break up." I simply looked at him, calm and indifferent, as if I were staring at someone who didn't matter. What did she say on the phone? I asked with a deliberate smile. She's your assistant. Probably calling about work. The implication was clear. He didn't need to report to me, and I had no interest in hearing it. After all, he'd always snapped at me before. Julia Reed, it's just work. Do I have to report everything to you? My words clearly displeased him. He yanked my arm hard enough to hurt. Julia Reed, do you know she's pregnant? I shook off his hand with force. Back when he was chasing me, once I scraped a bit of skin on my arm and he fussed forever, insisting on taking me to the hospital. I laughed it off. It's nothing. Why a hospital? But in the end, he still wasn't at ease. He ran to the pharmacy for disinfectant and personally dabbed it on, fussing over me this way and that, even telling me to avoid certain foods for a tiny scratch. Worried I wouldn't like takeout, he cooked for me himself. The food wasn't very good, but I could feel the warmth of his heart. The gap between love and not love is enormous. I don't know when we started looking united on the surface and split underneath. I smiled and said, I didn't know at first. Now I do. I turned to head for my room. If you don't love me anymore, then whose child is Vivian carrying? Does it matter whether the baby is his or someone else's? To me it's all the same. The point is she's shameless. She knew I was there first and still chose to be the other woman, then bounced over to show off in front of me. Slapping her once was already me being polite. But then a man even more shameless than Vivian White blocked my way. Julia Reed, we need to talk, Lucas said. I gave him a sultry smile and stepped closer. Talk about what? About you and Vivian. I know it was for work. That's what you've always said. Vivian got pregnant because of work, right? I get it. I won't make a scene. And I'm not jealous. Lucas just stared at me, stunned. 7 years living together, 7 years in love, building the company from nothing, and getting through the hardest days side by side. We understood each other. He was sure I loved him blindly to the point of losing myself. If I learned Vivian was pregnant and that the baby was his, surely I'd blow my top, turn the world upside down. When it comes to this, no matter how a woman rages, it always ends with the same line. Let's break up. That's the outcome he wanted. But I wasn't jealous anymore. When you don't love someone, the sour sting of love fades on its own. Lucas was Lucas. He pulled out a cigarette and lit it. Julia, I'm really in a bind. It started as a work thing, but now she's pregnant. I'm not that young anymore. My family keeps pushing me to get married. My mom wants a grandchild. I gave an understanding, gentle smile and said calmly, I've been preparing our wedding for a long time. The banquet's booked. The invitations are bought. Lucas grabbed my hand. Julia. He was angling for a wedding. Here we go. I gave a cold little laugh. A wedding? Lucas, are you saying the wedding I've prepared for so long should be handed over to Vivian? I asked on purpose. What do you take me for? He opened and closed his mouth and after a while finally said, Julia, it's just a wedding. We're not getting a license. She's pregnant now. I need to see her. Besides, she's just a young girl and look at your age. He even slid an arm around my waist and pulled me in. Come on, Julia. Trust me, I'll handle things with Vivian. We've been together 7 years. Don't you believe me? As he said it, he actually pushed me down on the bed, intending to do something outrageous. I rolled away and said, Coolly, I'm not interested. Lucas, we're not kids. You don't need to give way to some little girl, and you should save your energy to take care of her. Stop thinking about all this nonsense. I wanted to blow up at him, but it wasn't the time. I swallowed my temper. The man in front of me had once stood tall and handsome, features fine as jade. But 7 years from our college days to now, a company boss tossed about in the marketplace had etched lines at the corners of his eyes. With all the booze and indulgence, the 8-pack he once bragged about had turned into a soft roll over his belt. When I really think about it, he gave me his best years. I can't say I lost out. It's just a wedding. I won't bicker with a little girl over it, I said and started packing my things. Since everything was out in the open, I didn't want to live under the same roof with him, breathing in the smoke and alcohol that clung to his body. The scent of other women, their bodies, their perfume made me a little sick. When you love someone, you can tolerate piggish flaws. When you don't, every tiny habit gets magnified. Even his snoring at night sounded like rolling thunder, grating and unbearable. Watching me pack, Lucas's face darkened. He frowned. Julia, what are you doing? I smiled. Lucas, you're marrying Vivian White. I should avoid suspicion and move out. I also slapped your little sweetheart today. Better go comfort her. His expression turned stormy as he watched me fold the few clothes I had left into a suitcase. Only then did he seem to realize that this place where we'd lived together for 3 years no longer showed any trace of me. I'd already taken everything that was mine. He lit another cigarette, his voice carrying a note of gloom. Julia Reed, what are you getting at? I snapped my suitcase shut and rolled it toward the door. What am I getting at? You told me yourself I'm a grown woman and should make way for the young girl. You and she are about to hold a wedding, and I'm still living here with you. What would people think of me? We've been together 7 years. Do you expect me to carry the label of homewrecker for the rest of my life? This time he just kept his face set and said nothing. The next morning, as soon as I got to the office, I felt the atmosphere was off. Vivian White, eyes red, handed me a small box of cupcakes. Manager Reed, I'm sorry. Yesterday was my fault. She bowed to apologize, then added, but I'm pregnant with Mr. Droka, Grant's child. There's a little life in me. She stroked her belly and looked at me with a pitiful expression. Manager Reed, you're a woman too. You know how important children are to us. I don't want my child to be born carrying the label of bastard. Please understand. I picked up the cupcake box and dropped it straight into the trash. Coolly, I said, Vivian, whether your child is a bastard is something you should discuss with the man who fathered it. Get married and get the license as soon as possible instead of coming to me to whine. I'm not the kid's dad. What exactly am I supposed to understand? With that, I headed to my office. Vivian's face went chalk white. Tears pooled in her eyes. She swayed like she might faint. I smiled. Lucas isn't even here. Who are you performing this helpless little flower act for? As for whatever the rest of the company whispered behind our backs, that wasn't my concern. Even if I didn't fan the flames, people aren't blind these days. Lucas and I have been together 7 years, living together for 3. The wedding date picked, my dress already ordered. Now Vivian cut in, climbed into Lucas's bed, and not satisfied with that, is using the baby to claw her way up. So everyone in the office deliberately iced her out. Rumors about Vivian sleeping her way up have already multiplied. Several versions vivid as if they were there. With my personal mess mostly handled, it was time for business. I've poured myself into this company, working myself half to death and burning through countless nights. I've drafted every kind of proposal and written every kind of report. Now that the company's business is booming, someone wants to swoop in and pick the fruit. Not a chance. When I think about it, I can't remember the last time I rested. Sure, the company has holidays. Other people can take them. Lucas can go drink and sing karaoke, enjoying the glow of his youth, while I worked myself to the bone for the company, for the deals. I kept believing I'd have both love and career in hand, only to find it was all a joke. I kept comforting myself over and over. Trials in this world are just the tangle of 7 emotions and 6 desires. I had the best years of Lucas's life. I didn't lose out. As for the company, who doesn't go through a growth phase? The day before Lucas and Vivian's wedding, I sent him an email telling him I'd sold my shares, that I was resigning, and congratulations on the wedding. Also, the most important point, I'm getting engaged tomorrow. I knew he wouldn't have time to attend, but I still sent him an invitation. Lucas lost his cool. He called and texted. I couldn't be bothered. When you love someone, even a single word from him gets dissected like a reading comprehension exercise. You search the spaces between the lines for the saddest scraps of warmth, the tenderness of love, hoping for threads to cling to. When you don't love someone, you don't care about any of his messages. You don't want to hear his voice or see his face. We held the engagement at a 5-star hotel. Because of Ethan Cole's status, we kept the guest list small. Most were my acquaintances. I felt both pathetic and ridiculous. Cast off, toyed with, laughed at by Lucas, and now trying to use another man to salvage a little pitiful self-respect. It wasn't fair to Ethan. I apologized to him more than once and told him that if it bothered him, we could end this game at any time. He said he was grateful I'd given him the chance. His side didn't invite many people, but every guest was a heavyweight, and his parents even flew back from overseas. That made me feel even more awkward. What decent daughter-in-law meets the groom's parents at her engagement banquet? Thankfully, Ethan and I agreed on an engagement banquet instead of a wedding. Ethan told me that even if it was a game, he wanted it to feel more real, a bit grander. So the banquet was lavish, the entrance piled with roses. I put on the custom dress I'd ordered long ago and took Ethan's arm. In that sideways glance I really saw it. His features were finely cut, his presence commanding. When I served tea to Mrs. Cole, I felt terribly guilty, but she handed me a fat red envelope and even gifted me a pair of heirloom white jade bangles. My guilt only deepened. Ethan introduced me to his relatives and friends and took me table to toast. Without exception, the elders pressed red envelopes into my hands. I was completely unprepared. There were so many that happiness felt like it was spilling over, too much to hold. But it was still a self-deceiving game. And then Lucas Grant burst into the engagement hall, and the air turned awkward in an instant. I hadn't cared at all. He treated marriage like a joke and treated me like a toy. Fine, I could treat him like a toy too. We were all just playing. But with so many of the Cole family's friends and relatives here, I was afraid Ethan Cole would lose face. He slipped an arm around my waist and murmured at my ear, "Julia, don't be afraid." My restless heart settled for no reason at all. Lucas Grant barreled up to me and reached to grab my arm, but Ethan blocked him. "Mr. Grant, can I help you?" Ethan smiled with perfect manners. "Julia told me you're getting married today. I figured you wouldn't have time to attend our engagement party." Lucas's chest heaved. The whites of his eyes were shot with red. His hair was a bit wild and his clothes wrinkled. He didn't look like he'd rushed over from a wedding banquet. I knew why he'd come. Yesterday I told him I'd sold my shares and that I was getting engaged today. He didn't care whether I got engaged. He cared about the shares in my hand. "Julia Reed, tell me," he panted, pointing at me. "This is all fake, right? You hired people to put on a show." Yes, this was all fake. I'd hired people to put on a show. I was doing it to spite him. I could stop loving him, but that didn't stop me from wanting to make him furious. Ethan's voice warmed my ear. "Mr. Grant, do you take me for someone you can dismiss?" As he spoke, his arm tightened, pulling me into his chest, and he lowered his mouth firmly to mine. His breath surged over me, wrapping me layer after layer, leaving no room to breathe. I almost suffocated in his arms. My cheeks burned surely bright red. Applause thundered around us, a few whistles slicing through it. "Mr. Grant," Ethan said. "I, Ethan Cole, am getting engaged to Julia Reed today. I can't promise forever and ever, but in this life I will never fail her." The promise was so heavy it pressed the air from my lungs. Lucas's face went from steel blue to liver purple, as if all the blood had rushed to his head. He jabbed a finger at me and snarled, "Julia Reed, do you have to humiliate me like this?" I finally caught my breath, leaned against Ethan's shoulder and laughed softly. "Lucas, I don't know what you're talking about. I was with you for 7 years. Everyone knows that. I'm not trying to hide anything, so I'm saying it openly at my engagement. Now you're marrying Vivian White and I found a good match too. I don't know what humiliation you mean." Suddenly he seemed to snap. He grabbed a chair and smashed it down on the banquet table. Glass and porcelain exploded, skittering across the floor like our love shattered by his own hands into jagged pieces that stabbed into the heart, leaving it bloody and numb. I didn't know why he was this angry. "Why did you sell your shares?" he shouted at me. But Ethan had already called hotel security and the Cole family's bodyguards to escort him out. Staff moved quickly, clearing the wreckage and setting out fresh chive dishes with practiced ease. Lucas looked like a joke, storming in, then slinking out in disgrace, never even managing to ask the one question he cared about. I couldn't be bothered to explain. The shares were mine. I sold my shares because they're mine. None of his business. After the engagement party, I planned a vacation in Hainan. I told Ethan Cole that I'd been tied up with the company since before I even graduated college, and hadn't really had any fun these past years. I was about to take the CFO role at the Cole Group, which would only make me busier. So I wanted to grab this window and take a proper break. He smiled and said, "Okay, go enjoy yourself for a few days." After selling my stake in Harborell Partners, I had a little over 50 million in hand, enough to count as real assets. I dove into travel guides online. Ethan suggested booking me on a tour, but I wanted to roam on my own, go wherever I felt like going. Tours just run you through scenic spots to check boxes. I didn't want to be that busy. At dusk that day, Lucas Grant knocked on my door. I didn't want to see him at all, but I still let him in. He skipped the niceties and demanded, "Julia Reed, don't you think you owe me an explanation?" I tilted my head. "Explain what? Why did you sell your Harborelle shares?" He got in my face, jabbing a finger at me, shaking with anger. "You had to choose this way to get back at me. I've told you 100 times it was just a wedding. Your usual little temper is one thing, but this time you've gone too far. Julia, I won't forgive you." It was so absurd. I almost laughed. "And how exactly are you not forgiving me? I'm breaking up with you." He hissed, eyes bloodshot. "You have no tolerance at all." I smiled, eyes curving. "Lucas, I know you treat marriage like a game, but at least try not to play it so half-heartedly. You and Vivian already have a baby on the way. The invitations are out. The wedding's set. And now you're telling me you want to break up? Sorry, I dumped you ages ago. You're only figuring it out now. I thought you were supposed to be some top student. No communication problems, right? Or did you leave your brain at home today?" He flung the teacup from my table to the floor. My pretty cup shattered into pieces. What a tragedy. He stared straight at me. Once, this man stood tall and elegant like a jade tree in the wind. Now there was only decay and fatigue. I could smell the rot on him. "Julia Reed, do you even know the Cole Group has always wanted to swallow Harborelle? Well, you sold them your shares. Now they can take control. Ethan Cole will never love you. Who do you think you are? And who is he? Do you really think your aging looks can seduce him? He just wanted your share so he could take over Harborelle and ruin us." I honestly didn't know what point he was trying to make, on and on, dragging me down. I used to hope he'd spare some time to keep me company, just chat, even if it was petty complaints. Now every word out of his mouth buzzed like a big blue bottle fly, that hateful droning. So I cut him off. "Lucas, I know exactly why Ethan bought my stake in Harborelle. So he could take control and then push further. Whether he loves me is my business, not yours. Don't meddle. If you've got nothing else, please leave. You're in my way. And another thing, Mr. Grant, you're a man with a woman already. Mind your boundaries. Don't just show up at another woman's place. If you need to see me next time, make an appointment first. Don't barge in like this. We're not that close." At last Lucas lost it. He shouted at me, "Julia Reed, you sold the shares. Did you ever think about me? What am I supposed to do? Don't you understand that without Harborelle unfinished, my family won't have me? The outside world won't have me. Do you have to force me into a dead end?" This time I didn't hold back. I swung and slapped him hard across the face, then backhanded him with another. My palm stung. Only after I'd finished, I jabbed a finger at his nose and snapped, "Lucas Grant, do you have any shame left?" "No." "Right. You never had any. As a collateral branch of the Grant family, they tossed you a company on the brink and kicked you out to fend for yourself. Sophomore year, something happened at Grant Group and the family split. Lucas was only from a side branch, not a direct heir. They dumped a failing little company on him, Harborelle Pharmaceuticals, and it was about to go under. He confided in me. I sold the apartment my father left me in Seaview City, brought the money into his capital, and took a stake in Harborelle. From then on, Harborelle and I were tied together. While other people enjoyed college, dating, shopping, catching movies, I worked myself to death for the company and still kept up with classes. We turned Harborelle around. The numbers got better year by year, and we finally had money. Behind my back, he bought a house without putting my name on the deed, yet dumped all the renovations on me. I proposed we get married. He said we were still young. No rush. Then I got pregnant and wanted to keep the baby. He drugged me. He said the company had just gotten on track. He wasn't ready to be a father, and he didn't want me tied down by chores at such a critical moment. I should pour all my time and energy into performance. Yes, that little company held all my blood and sweat. I couldn't bear to abandon it, so I kept going, fighting, grinding, pushing. Harborelle was supposed to be the witness of our love. Sooner or later, Lucas and I would make it to the finish line. We were just kids, really, 27 and 28. His family started pressing for a wedding. Lucas's mother said Lucas was getting older and wanted a grandchild. Everything seemed to be falling into place. I started planning the ceremony, and Lucas didn't object. And then he knocked up a college girl. He said he despised that I'd once had an abortion, that a life died in my womb, that I was dirty. Funny how he never mentions he secretly gave me abortive patients. Now Lucas wants me to hand my wedding over to Vivian White. And he even lectured me that I'm a grown woman who shouldn't quibble with a little girl. What a joke. The ex works like a mule to build his company. The current one gives him a child. Where in the world does a man get luck that good? Lucas, get a grip. Whether you live or die has nothing to do with me. To me, Harborwell Pharmaceuticals is a pig I carefully fattened. Once it's fat, of course I'll sell it. My words seemed to hit him hard. He stumbled out of my place like a walking corpse. I didn't care. I went right back to studying my travel plans. The next day Vivian White called, hysterical on the phone. In some ways she and Lucas really are a match. No wonder they ended up together. Their ridiculous talking points line up perfectly. Julia Reed, do you have to use such a clumsy trick to steal Lucas from me? Do you think selling your Harborwell shares will make him value you? We're already married. Stirring things up like this only makes you lose face, she screamed. I hadn't seen the circus at their wedding because I was busy with my engagement, but we're in the same social circle. My feed was flooded with it. The day before their ceremony, after hearing I'd sold my Harborwell stake, Lucas went half mad. Drank himself numb all night, chain-smoked, and spammed me with messages. I lost my patience and blocked him. The next day he didn't show up to pick up the bride. Instead he ran around asking where I was. I told him I was getting engaged, but he didn't believe it. Not until the banquet actually started did he snap awake and come wreck mine. After he got thrown out he started drinking again. Vivian kept calling to demand this and that. How much for the bride price, what gold set to buy, then asked when Lucas would deliver his tux. I've never seen a wedding so absurd. In the end, Vivian took a cab to the hotel herself and found the MC wasn't even there. But since the invitations had gone out, relatives and friends still showed up, and the farce kicked off in grand style, then fizzled from start to finish. Lucas never set foot at the venue. On the phone I gave Vivian a cool cutting line. Vivian, Lucas is just a man I'm bored of. Thanks for taking over. Keep a close eye on him and don't let him harass me again. And you can stop calling me too. We're not friends. As for the shares, I sold the pig I worked so hard to fatten. What does me selling my pig have to do with anyone else? Then I hung up and blocked her as well. When I headed to Hainan, a friend told me Lucas had gone off the deep end. He hit Vivian, then smashed 2 laptops at a shareholders meeting and wrecked the conference room. Of course, none of that had anything to do with me anymore. I left Hainan on a clear morning, sunlight lifting off the water like a shard of glass. When the plane touched down, the Cole Group's legal team had the paperwork ready. Cole officially took control of Harborwell. A temporary board was in place and an independent audit was underway. I signed on as CFO with one condition. Every decision tied to Harborwell would be transparent to employees and shareholders. It was the kindest goodbye I could give to 7 lost years. Consequences arrived fast. The audit surfaced bloated client entertainment, bogus consulting contracts, and personal expenses laundered through the books. Lucas Grant was suspended from management, then referred for criminal charges for trashing property at the shareholders' meeting and for domestic violence. He had to issue a public apology, pay fines, do community service, and accept a multi-year ban from holding an executive role in pharma. The same people who once toasted his deal-making now avoided him like a dying spark. Vivian White didn't walk away clean either. A mishandled employment contract, improper perks, and a trail of emails demanding wedding benefits through the company got her forced out by the ethics committee. The media's little princess became the checklist queen. She left town quietly. Her social accounts vanished after one short note. I need to learn how to grow up. It was the first true thing I ever heard from her. As for me, I gave the stage back to the work. We kept Harborwell's best technical team, killed the glitter contracts, boosted R&D and employee benefits, and opened an internal whistleblower line. Next quarter, revenue didn't rocket like a fairy tale, but the line straightened, cleaned up, and finally made sense. Legal sent demand letters to partners who had been working off the books. No heroes descended from the sky, just ordinary people deciding to do the right thing. Ethan Cole stayed beside me, not promising forever, only saying, "I won't fail you in this life." We tore up our engagement game and started over like adults. Real dating, real work, real respect. One evening we walked past a row of ginkgo trees outside the new headquarters, yellow leaves falling like confetti. Ethan asked if I wanted a small wedding. I smiled. When I really want one, I'll say it first. Lucas tried calling me once more before his hearing. I didn't pick up. Some stories deserve to close in silence. He paid with his reputation, his professional future, and most of all with the obligation to face himself. Vivian paid with her job and a youth spent on the wrong bets. Justice isn't revenge. Justice is living with the consequences you chose. On year-end close, I emailed the whole company. We don't need miracles, just principles. Then I bought myself a solo ticket. No itinerary, no tour. In another seaside city, I caught my reflection in a storefront window. Light makeup, the faint brown speck beneath my lid. Someone once called lucky Cinnabar. I laughed. Luck isn't a birthmark or a destiny. It starts the moment you decide to stand with yourself.